welcome, welcome. We have Robyn Vasquez-Gutierrez with us today. We met super randomly in the Instagram social media world. You reached out to me from another podcast. You were so excited to hear the content, and then we just connected, and hearing that you also left your 9 to 5, Robyn has to get on the podcast. And here we are today just recording her session. I cannot wait to dig into her story. I haven't heard much of her story yet. I know some parts of it, but I'm so excited to dig in. So welcome, Robyn.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much for having me. Like you said, it was a random encounter, but I feel like we were magnets, right? It was magnetic, and I'm so excited that we know each other now and that I got this opportunity. I am always super excited to just share my story and try to instill some hope and inspiration for anyone out there who also might be looking to leave their 9 to 5 and take that leap.
Yeah. So let's jump right in. Tell us a little bit about where you were and where you're now, and how did it all happen?
Okay, it's been a journey, so let me tell you that. Let's see. So by trade, by career, I have been a board certified behavior analyst for a very long time. I did some wrong girl math the other day and I said 16 years, but it's 14 years. But I've been in the field of behavior analysis for almost 20 years regardless, because prior to receiving that certification, I worked as a direct line behavior technician. So I was working in the autistic community. I love what I did. And throughout my time in the field, not only have I seen a lot of changes happen, we went from certain funders like school districts, regional centers paying for funding for the ABA treatment for these individuals, to insurance and private equity taking over. So I've seen a lot of changes in the field throughout my duration of time that I was serving that community. And like I said, I love the work that I did. When I was working directly with the families, working with the people, I was really fulfilled. And what I found was, as I moved up and as I became more seasoned, I guess you would say, I simultaneously found myself moving further and further away from my why. And so my roles in the field, I'll say that they were all meaningful. I got to step into mentorship and supervision in a variety of ways, but because I wasn't doing that direct line work anymore, I felt like a big piece of me was missing. And I don't know, call it COVID or whatever happened in 2020. I think we all went a little bit inward and started doing some soul searching. And that was really when I had this aha moment of like, I still have a good amount of my life left to work. This is not it for me. What else can I do using the skills that I have to really help people in a different way? And so it wasn't just like I had this aha moment and it happened. Like, I was on this journey, and one part of my story I like to share is that life's us. So I had my fair share of lifing me. In 2017, my son was born. In early 2018, I ended up going through an unexpected divorce that was pretty challenging with an infant baby. And later that year, my mom's house burned down in the Paradise Fire, if you recall that fire that swooped the whole town, and so she lost her house. And the next year, I found myself in an operating room for having emergency surgery. I was fine one day, walked into the ER, and they're like, we're operating on you today. And then 2020 happened, and so by 2022, all right, I need to figure out my life. I feel like I'm a big girl, but life has really lifed me, and I felt by that year I was ready. I could breathe a little bit more easily. And so I hired a career coach myself and really wanted to figure out, like, what do I do? Where do I go from here? Because I had thought that I had it all figured out. And that career coach was the best investment, because what she really helped me do was identify where are my strengths and how can I use them. And by the end of that coaching program, everything led to me being a coach myself too, and using the skills that I had as a behavior analyst in the coaching world. So that's my long-winded way of saying, like, from point A to point B of how I got here.
I love that. And I love how you said life lives us. I normally say life happens to all of us, but I'm going to start using that. It's life happens. It's just a matter of us pivoting and then kind of being aware of our emotions and how do we take back control, right?
Right.
And one thing that you also touched on that I want to dig a little bit more deeper into, you said you found out that you weren't meeting your why anymore. What was your why in that original position?
My why was just connection and community, and seeing the impact that I had. It's really important to me that I am part of a bigger system, a bigger change here. And so when I was working directly with the individuals, I was also working with their families. So I was in their home and I was seeing their life transform. And that's my why. I'm so passionate about helping people reach their fullest potential. And that fuels me. I've really paid attention to like what energizes me. And it's that. It's like my mission in life is to just inspire hope and inspiration and help everyone become the best version of themselves that they can be. I believe everyone's authenticity is so important and plays a role in their story. And at the same time that we can all find newfound greatness and continue on our journey, because life is, hopefully, right? Hopefully we live a long, healthy, happy life, but life is lifey. And if we don't have the skills to navigate that, then it can be extra challenging.
Yeah. What were some of the symptoms that you observed in how you were feeling that you were not meeting your why anymore?
I'll take full accountability here and say it was really a personal thing. Like I started to go inward, and I think that like 2020 really kind of brought that out of me. And I really learned that I was living my life to please others. I was really unable to set boundaries. I was striving for perfection, and I was able to see these symptoms had a huge impact on my mental health. I would lay in bed at night and just ruminate and obsess about the conversations that I had, to the point that my husband had to help me breathe through that. Like he talked me off of so many ledges because I was emotionally unavailable. I was too in my head and I wasn't living in the present moment. And so I think it was just like a decision. I decided like, I need to wake up because look at all of these things that have happened to me. I haven't even lived half of my life yet, hopefully, right? And it's time that I take the reins back.
Wow. Looking back, how do you feel about looking at those moments that you had?
I think everything for a reason. And Kelly Clarkson says, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So I never said I was a good singer, but yeah, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I know that everyone has their own unique circumstances, so that might not be true for everyone. I know that pain and grief can be deeply impactful and really impair our ability to live a meaningful and happy life. But for me, I was like, enough is enough. I'm ready to find some joy. I'm ready to live. I'm ready to live. Life is meant for living, right?
Oh, I love that. I love that. And so how did it happen, the moment, the resignation? How did the resignation happen?
That's a great question. And let me tell you, it was not easy at all because fear is my friend. I kick it with fear a lot now. And that fear kept coming in, creeping in, and telling me stories that I wasn't capable or that it wasn't going to work out. And so I'm also a planner by nature. Like, it's just kind of always what I've done. I have to have a plan. I've gotten a lot better as a business owner now. It's like, didn't go according to plan. We'll try again. Right? But prior to resigning, I'll say that I took steps for 2 years to really feel solid in that plan. So it wasn't like I just woke up and I was like, I'm quitting my job today. I'm going to leave this 6-figure job behind and go to $0 because that sounds like a good idea. No, it was more like I took strategic steps for those 2 years. And it was simple things. Like I was working full time, but I was getting my tax ID number. I was opening a bank account. I was buying a website domain. I was learning how to use technology in a certain way. And so I believe, we talked about even how we met, and I'm a very spiritual person. So I believe that the universe shows us signs. And I was working for a job where we had lost the contract to continue. And so there was a timeline in which I would be laid off. And of course, there were some opportunities for getting hired on with the next company, for severance, for some of those things. But the timing worked out so perfectly that if I resigned by June, I would be able to spend the summer with my son, who was going into kindergarten that fall. And so I said, okay, universe, I see you giving me this gift and this opportunity. I really need to act on this because I've laid the foundation for 2 years. And so now I'm really ready to do this. And that's my story. I've talked to so many other people who are business owners, and I know we all do it on our own timeline, but that's kind of my advice, is really pay attention to the signs around you.
I love that. The contract didn't want to continue. And it's beautiful how you said that you saw that as a gift for another sign for you to spend more time with your son who's growing up super fast, I'm sure.
Right.
And
Oh, yeah.
it's almost like you took that up, instead of seeing it as a challenge, you took that as an opportunity for you to take that leap of faith to go forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was still scared. The fear was still there. That didn't necessarily just dissipate or go away. But I knew that I had done enough work internally to trust myself and to figure it out.
Let's dig a little deeper into how you overcame your fear. What was the work that you did, and how did the fear appear, and how did you just beat that guy to death and then allow yourself to take the reins back?
I love it. You're such a good coach. Look at you digging deeper. You're so good. The biggest thing that I'll say that transformed my life is the same framework that I use with my clients today. So I live and breathe a framework called acceptance and commitment therapy, which has so many various definitions, but ultimately one way to describe it is what acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, does is teaches us that we can live a rich and meaningful life despite pain, despite fear, despite any uncomfortable feeling that comes up. It teaches us how to drop the struggle with it and bring in the acceptance piece and move towards committed action, even when, one, we don't feel like doing it, or two, when we notice these unpleasant symptoms. There's a lot of us out here that are just chasing happiness. We want to be happy because that's what feels good, but the reality is we're human and we have a whole range of experiences and emotions and sensations. So we really have to learn to live with those and almost become friends with them and allow them in and know that it's a fleeting moment, just like happiness, but that if we stick to our values and we stick to what's important to us, we can get to that end goal.
Chasing the happiness, like you said, is one emotion. And so what are other emotions that you would share with your clients even now? How do we get there to, I want happiness. Teach me how I get there.
Yeah, a big part of it is going to sound maybe a little bit unconventional, but we actually experience happiness by accepting sadness. We wouldn't even know what happiness feels like if we didn't know how to accept being sad or feeling some anxiety or noticing some depressive types of thoughts, feelings, moods, sensations. And so when we can experience the full range of emotions and that full spectrum, we can better tap into our happiness. And I find that to be really true for me. Lots of things have changed in my life. I'm getting alerts from my phone about my heart rate has improved. The iPhone gives you this stuff now, that my stress level is reduced, that I'm sleeping better. And so there's these collateral side effects on doing the work that have showed up in my health. And now, because I generally feel like I'm a pretty happy person most of the time, and to be honest, before I started acceptance and commitment therapy and implementing that in my own life, I will say I'm a pretty positive, happy person in general. At least I've always tried to be, but I've had moments of time where I have let that anxiety swoop in and just completely come in like a storm and a tornado into my life and take over. And I don't do that anymore. It still happens. I'm not saying that I don't have anxious thoughts. Sometimes I wake up in the night and say, what am I doing with my life? But I'm able to step back and notice that and accept that. So I think first and foremost, it's like we have to embody the work that we're doing as coaches or whatever we're passionate about in order to really help somebody else move through that transformative experience too.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Accept even the sadness, or accept the not feeling so good emotions. I don't want to call them negative because they're not negative to me. And they're all a sign for us to do something about our emotions. And so say somebody listen to us right now, I know they're just feeling so frustrated at work. They drag their feet from the parking lot all the way to the office, to the cubicle, or they wake up, if they're working from home, they just drag themselves from brushing their teeth, or maybe even not brushing their teeth, and hop on the computer and into the first meeting. It's just, everything feels heavy. How would you explain to them that is something that they could accept this moment?
First and foremost, I would say they're not alone, and it can be difficult. And I think if they're listening in on this, if this is new work for them or it's a new concept, it might take them aback and they might say, yeah, right, that's not going to work. That doesn't sound good. And I'll say that it's not easy until you do the reps. There's no secret to it. You just decide that that's what you're going to start doing. And over time, by continuing to engage in those actions and those behaviors, it becomes easier. And I would say for the person who finds themselves dragging their feet and maybe just hopping into meetings and really feeling like they're not fulfilled, but they know that they're destined for more, is to really connect with their values and really think about what's important to them, because I think that also helps you tap into those unpleasant or uncomfortable emotions just as much as the pleasant ones, because you really start to identify what really matters here, because we're all living on autopilot. Like, we're all just going through the motions. And I think when we can step back and zoom out and really think about what matters, we can also tap into experiencing the full range of emotions. And congratulations, we're human, we're alive. If you're feeling that, it means you're alive, right?
I love that. I love that. It's just really about shifting the focus from seeing the negative side of things and then going back out in the bigger picture point of view, say, hey, what I really, really want to do, what excites me, what lights me up, and then what are my true values that I want to live by every single day. And if we all took that time to evaluate that, as I'm not saying it could be a quick exercise, it may be just 5 minutes of contemplating what that means, and then the next day another 5 minutes of contemplating again. And once we have that question going on in our minds will automatically search for those answers for you. It may not come the same day that you ask it,
right,
but just wait for it to come, because it will show you in different ways, maybe during a meeting or during a phone call or during even just bringing your kids to the soccer practice or whatever. It will just pop in your head, oh, that's what I really want.
Yeah, I love that. What I tell a lot of my clients is, let's just aim to be 1% better, right? So I love what you said about 5 minutes one day, 5 minutes the next. It doesn't have to be extravagant. It doesn't have to be perfect. And unfortunately, as humans, like you said, our mind's going to search for various answers. And a lot of times our mind wants us to be at point B, right? We're at point A, it wants to be at point B already. And so when we're not there, we tend to get discouraged and defeated. But that's the beautiful part of the journey. So just put one foot in front of the other. We don't have to see the whole path. Just take the first step. And it's really those small baby steps that eventually get you there. They compound over time.
Yeah, for sure. And so we talked about this was a 2-year process for you. You definitely prepared ahead of time. And so the moment you were going to resign, how did that happen? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so done a lot of back and forth because we had heard about this contract. Our company was very transparent about this and was keeping us informed. We had town hall meetings. So I actually knew about that for about, I don't know, time's a blur. I want to say 3 to 6 months before I actually resigned, because I wanted to be really thoughtful about the exact timing that I put in place. And I was a supervisor, so I had a team and I cared about those people greatly. So I wanted them to be in good hands. I wanted to do the handoff appropriately. And at the same time, like I said, I wanted to make sure that I was available to really be present with my son for that summer. And so in April of every year, I actually go on a little retreat with my best friends. And we head up to Seattle where my best friend lives, and 4 of us come together, now 5 of us come together. And every year it's just this opportunity for healing and growth and reflection and intention setting and just surrounding ourselves with like-minded people. And my big theme or reflection and intention at that moment was, you guys help me work through this because I'm having a lot of fear. I know it's time, but I will say that retreat and surrounding myself with those incredible women helped empower me to be like, okay, this is it. When I get back, I'm doing it. And literally, I flew back, I went back to work, and I had drafted my resignation letter on the plane. I randomly had a meeting with my boss anyway, not that Monday, but the Tuesday that I was back. And so I let him know over the phone. And then I sent in that resignation. And when I did it, I have to tell you too, I went to a wedding the following weekend and I celebrated hard. I know it was their wedding, but I was like, I'm here to party because I did it. And I took control back of my life, right? I reclaimed my life. And let me tell you, I was also scared shitless. I didn't know what was going to happen. I knew that I had laid the foundation, but we can't see the future. If we could live life in reverse, it would be so much easier, but that's not the case. So I just knew that all signs were pointing me in this direction. And so truly, I felt so much relief amongst fear. I also think it's important to recognize there's duality. We can feel two different things, three different things at once. And that was so very true for me, because I was high on life and excited about all of the possibilities. And then in the back of my head, that inner critic was telling me, what the hell did you just do? You're going to be homeless. I mean, worst case scenario, my mind was telling me those stories.
I love that. And you touched on the duality part. And oftentimes, and I had to work on this recently myself, because on this self-development journey, we tend to not like the negative feelings that don't feel great, the unpleasant emotions, and then we tend to judge it, and it's like, okay, let me think positive. And then you also touched on that earlier as well. It's accept them as what they are. And just one day I was on my coaching call, and my coach and I just sat together on the phone. We weren't talking because I was crying, and I just cried like a baby, and she was just kind of like my mom and being present with me. And that was kind of the first time that I just accepted that I was sad at that time. And to your point of that duality, we can be sad, but also in a grateful heart at the same time, because I was so grateful that she was just sitting with me. And it's just, we're complex. I have a complex human vehicle machine that we're carrying this physical body. We don't need to judge those unpleasant emotions. And it's always sometimes complex in our own thoughts and emotions as well. But that's the fun part of it as well.
Yeah. Well, I love to hear that you did that work too. And I know that that can be uncomfortable for a lot of us. But like you said, it really helped you understand that duality and helped you move forward. So I love that you had that experience too. And it's so needed. I think we all need that safe space to just be human and allow ourselves to allow these emotions to process. I feel like we need a universal collective energy shift. And if we can all go inward and work on ourselves, call me optimistic, call me unrealistic, I don't know, but I'm hopeful that if we all do the inner work, we'll start to see the outer world be so much better.
Yeah, that's crazy. I always had this vision since I was a child. It's like, if only everybody would just love each other and would work all in a team. And even in the corporate environment, it's like people would stop like just handing over the work and then just not care about how the next person is going to take over the work. Just like a sense of collaboration. And it would be so wonderful if we all had that sense of collaboration and a teamwork. And I would tell my husband that, and he would think I'm crazy. But just hearing you say that, it's like it's all possible, and all of us, if we did all the work of each of us knowing what we want, knowing our values, I truly believe that as a human society we can all get there.
I believe it too. So we're on the mission together, and I know there's other people out there who believe that mission. And actually earlier you said something that I wanted to tap into about like just having this positive outlook, and it sounds like that's what our mission is and what we're trying to do. And I just want to clarify for anyone out there, this isn't toxic positivity. It's not about making everything wonderful and positive. I fully recognize and understand that the world is hurting and that things are not butterflies and rainbows. But again, it's going back to that duality. And it's trying to see the positive or trying to see the opportunity. And if we can all do that in incremental baby steps, again, let's see where we're at the end of it all.
Yeah, that's so true. Seek for the opportunity in every obstacle that's coming our way, just like how you saw the opportunity when the contract ended and say, hey, let me take that as a sign, right? Instead of, oh my God, what am I going to do? It's just, why did they do that? Why did they cancel the contract? Well, that's not something we can control.
Right.
The only thing that we can control is how we seek to find the opportunities in every single challenge that we're coming across.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely. Yeah, we can only control that and how we respond, right? I love it.
Yeah. And going back to your story, so you said you were a planner.
Yeah,
and so
over planner.
I love that. And that's what kind of gave you the certainty, right? You were preparing ahead. And so what other things did you prepare? You were talking about your EIN, getting your business entity set up. And what else did you do during that 2 years?
I learned a lot about acceptance and commitment therapy because I had a lot of uncertainty about actually coaching. Like, I knew that I had the skills because of the line of work that I was in. I was a mentor, and I have so many people who see me that way and still tell me, like, you are the greatest mentor I've ever had. And so I knew that I had these skills and this ability, but let me tell you, self-doubt also creeped in. And I was like, I'm not in the business of taking someone's money if I can't deliver. And while I can't make guarantees or promises in the line of work that I do, because ultimately it's up to the individual to carry out their side of it, I didn't want anyone to be disappointed in the work that we were doing or in how I showed up. So I was doing things like going to peer supervision groups, which I still go to. I love my peer supervision group, but that's where I really learned how to coach. It gave me this platform for practicing in a safe space where I could get feedback from peers who were doing the same thing. I immersed myself in the literature, in book clubs. I hired business coaches. So I saw people who were 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of me, and I said, I need their help in getting there. And so I invested in myself, the first one being the career coach. After that, I hired someone as another behavior analyst who helped me. She was on a similar journey, but ahead of me. So she helped me understand the business aspect, because that was something I knew nothing about. And when you own your own business, you're not only, like, I'm a coach, but I'm not just a coach. I'm marketing, I'm content creation, I'm scheduling, I'm billing, I'm literally every hat. And so I'm like, these are things I don't know how to do. So I would say I spent those 2 years trying to really build this solid foundation of, like, do I even know what I'm going to be doing? And just investing in myself. I would say it was like a self-healing journey, while at the same time I checked off those kind of administrative tasks that I knew would propel me forward.
Wow. It sounded like you had a lot of coaches helping you and showing you the path. Mm-hmm. And how did you even know who to look for?
I don't know how it started. I think that I just knew that I don't know what I don't know. And if I could reach out to the people who have done it, that I would get there. And maybe that was just because in my career, I always had someone to look up to. I always had a mentor. I too always had someone helping me along my journey. It didn't feel any different in transitioning. It was just more of a matter of, I have to seek this myself. It's not just going to fall into my lap. And who do I really want that to be? And I actually used Instagram as a platform. My mentor, I love her to death. Her name's Jocelyn. I was just watching her journey, and I was seeing her do all of these things. And it was December of 2022. So it was after I had hired the career coach. I was doing all of that internal work. And I was like, okay, the next step is I need someone to show me how to get there. So we had been interacting a little bit on Instagram, but we didn't really know each other too well. And I took the leap and I said, I am so inspired. I'm motivated by what you're doing. Are you willing to take this on? And at that point, that wasn't even something she offered, but she said, sure, like, I'm so willing to help you get there. And she mentored me for a year, all 2023. So she saw me go through the resignation, startup of the business, the launching, all of that. And yeah, I wouldn't be where I am without her.
Oh my goodness. And that's crazy. You just saw somebody that inspired you and you reached out to her just asking the question. You didn't let, what did they offer? What are they going to think about me? Mm-hmm. You just kind of led with the question and see what had happened.
Yeah, and I think that's where I didn't let fear stop me. It was probably still there, but I think I also have this philosophy of the answer is no if we don't ask. And so the answer was no if I didn't ask, and the answer could have been no if I asked, but let me give it a try and see what happens. And I'm so grateful that I took that chance and that she took the chance on me, because, like I said, I'm truly better and farther along because of her mentorship and support. And it was truly just seeing in the manifestation world, we call this expanders. You're probably familiar, right? She was an expander for me. I was seeing to believe that this is possible. And I think that was too the first step where I was like, all right, Robyn, check your ego a little bit, because like I said, I'm keenly aware that I don't know what I don't know. At the same time, I also know what my strengths are. I know very much what I bring to the table, and now I truly lean into that. And anything else that's new or novel or I'm not sure about, I'm going to seek help and I'm going to seek support. And I know that that's so hard for people. So for anyone out there listening to this, I would say it's not just about asking for help. That is a beautiful first step. it's accepting the help once it's available to you, or accepting help even without asking for help. Those two things can be very circular, but I would just really encourage you to seek support. I truly believe we're better together. I mean, we're all different, and that's what makes the world go round.
Wow, I love that. And that's actually something I'm working on myself, accepting people helping me.
Yeah, it's hard.
How did you navigate that for yourself? Tell us about that.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy because, like I said, I'm a people pleaser, I'm a perfectionist, and asking for help can be really challenging for anyone who kind of has these all or nothing kind of thinking or tendencies or perfectionistic types of vibes. And truly, being ready is a decision, not a feeling. And so I just knew that I was ready. And I'll say that what helped me get there was my life circumstances. I'm not going to say I've had the roughest life. I've shared a little bit of my story, but those things kind of back to back took a toll on me. And I was like, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep waking up every day and dreading my life. We get one life. I'm ready to live it, and not just live or survive. I'm ready to thrive. It's just a matter of doing it, doing the reps. You just have to like check your ego, put it aside, and recognize where your limitations are, and know that it doesn't mean that you're not worthy or you're not capable or that you don't have good strengths. It just means that someone else out there has those strengths, and you also have something to offer to them where you have these strengths.
I love that. What does check your ego mean for you?
So for me, it's like that voice of my inner critic, that ego, that voice can kind of get involved. So for me, even to this day, when I think about what are the areas that I need to ask for help, there's a little voice inside of my head that says, oh, Robyn, you should know what to do. Look at you running a business and you don't even know what you're doing. People are going to find out you're a fraud or you're an imposter. So to me, it's saying, all right, I hear you, but you don't get to take over. And I used to let that voice take over. And in ACT, we use a lot of metaphors. So the way that I would paint this picture is that voice of the inner critic used to come into my car and take over the wheel and send me to the back seat. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm along for the ride. And now checking my ego is like, oh, hey girl, I see you, but you're going to sit in the back and I'm going to take you to where you need to go. And you can stay, but you don't get to drive anymore. I'm in charge here.
Wow. I love that analogy. It's all about taking that control back.
Yeah.
And being aware also of what that ego sounds like. What does that ego sound like for you?
Like in terms of like the voice of like how it sounds?
The voice.
Well, it's usually pretty negative. So it's usually telling me something limiting, that I'm not capable, that I'm not able, that I'm not worthy. And actually, since I've started really paying attention to that voice of my inner critic, I've given it a name, and I said it's a he, and not because it's male, but because it's this masculine energy of like doing more, being better, go, 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 not allowing me to slow down. And so I actually say, here comes trouble. All right, trouble, you're in the back seat today. That actually helps me a lot, like separate myself from those thoughts.
Wow, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And so now you're on that journey of, okay, you're working towards taking control of your ego, sending him back in the back seat. And so after you left your job, and how do you feel now? Like, do you feel like all the planning that you did has helped you to achieve to where you are today, or you're still kind of like figuring things out?
I mean, definitely. Like, I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't do some of that planning and forward thinking. Like, I'm just not the type of person that's like, I'm going to jump off the cliff today and figure out where I land. I had to place a little markers for me to be like, okay, I'm going that direction. And I will say that some of the over planning was unnecessary because sometimes things don't go according to plan. So there are certain situations where I could have just been a little bit more relaxed and see what happens. And I think that now I'm better able to do that. I'm 6 months into business, so still very, very early days. But through taking what my other business coach, who's also awesome, Bree Norberg, is amazing. What she always says is like, take messy action. And I think through taking messy action and getting comfortable that it doesn't have to be perfect, but that I just have to be consistent and that every day I have to be moving forward, taking one step further, that has really allowed me to get where I am today. And I look forward to 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now. And this, as business owners, we have to be thinking about those things. things. And that can be daunting, but it's also exciting. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but I know that I'm watering the seeds now for those plants that are going to blossom and bloom later.
Yeah, I love that. And you touched on a good point too. It's like you looking back, you may have overplanned. And would you have preferred to that you did that, or do you feel like you just wasted time to do that looking back?
I definitely recognize that there are areas where I wasted time because I spent time on reading or certifications or things that just aren't necessary. Yet at the same time, that version of Robyn needed that. And so it's only because I've done the work and I'm at where I am today that I'm able to say, okay, now I don't need to plan as much. But that version of me needed that comfort, needed that level of compassion. And so I would just say for anyone out there who this resonates with and you find yourself like, oh, I'm an over planner too, just remember you're exactly where you need to be.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah.
If somebody's listening and they feel like, well, what if I try that and it won't work and I would have wasted my time? What would you tell them?
I would tell them your mind's doing its job of trying to catastrophize the situation. We don't know what we don't know. And I would encourage them to think, okay, what if? So what if you give this action a try and it doesn't work? Then what? And see what happens. And a lot of times you'll go on this journey of, like I did earlier, I said that I had these thoughts of like, I'm going to end up homeless. Well, that's very worst case. Like this business isn't, okay, so what's going to happen for me? I'm not going to get a client. Okay, then what? I'm not going to have money to pay my bills. Okay, then what? I'm going to go bankrupt. Okay, and then what? I'm going to be homeless, right? And that is a very worst case trajectory, and I know that I trust myself to lean in and not let that happen. But you see, my mind went there, but the reality is I know that it wouldn't actually happen. I wouldn't allow that to happen. And so I would say if you find yourself questioning what's going to happen, the what ifs, change your language to even if this happens, then what? Because that's where you have control. And it's like you said, we get to take back that control and take the reins.
I love that. It's all about changing the language. The language affects our thoughts automatically. And just by changing that word of what if instead of even if, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if that happens, what would I feel? It's like, okay, well, thinking about it, it's not that bad, and I know I won't allow myself to get there. For us to be out of that constant loop of negative talk, of that ego talking, how to break that ego talk is to change the words that we use. It's like, okay, even if that happens, right? I love that.
Absolutely. And our mind is doing its job to keep us safe. It senses that there's danger. And so that's how our minds have evolved. Back in the day, there were saber-toothed tigers that our mind was trying to protect us from. The problem is there's no saber-toothed tigers anymore, but our mind is still trying to keep us small and protect us. And so we get to say like, okay, I see what you did there. And just taking yourself out and just noticing that that's happening can have a tremendous impact on the actions that you take.
Yeah, for sure. And even seeing it as not a danger. Our mind sees it as a danger. The ego sees it as a danger. But we talked about any challenge, there's always an opportunity there. So if we focus on seeking out the opportunity, then it shifts our mind focus from the danger to, okay, let's seek for the sunlight out of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I always end my podcast asking all my guests the same question.
Okay.
For somebody who's listening to us right now and they hear that nudge inside of them, it's like, I know I'm meant for something more. I know I'm not being fulfilled right now, and I feel like I'm shifting away from my purpose of my why. What is one recommendation that you would give them?
Oh man, I want to give like 10 recommendations, but if I can narrow it down to one, I would go back to what I said about identify your values. You cannot move forward if you don't know who and what is important to you, and identify what it is that is moving you closer to those values and what is moving you further away from. And every day ask yourself, am I moving closer to those values, or am I moving away from it? And hold yourself with kindness and compassion throughout that process, because that duality that we talked about is going to come up. You're going to experience a full range of thoughts, feelings, emotions, sensations, some of them extremely pleasant where you feel high on life, and some of them where you feel really defeated and incapable of making this decision. But hold yourself with kindness and compassion and treat yourself like you would a dear, someone who's very close and important to you, how you would talk to them.
I love that, Robyn. You're such a wealth of knowledge. You're obviously have done a lot of work on yourself, on all the emotions and the manifestation as well. And you are so spiritual, and that shows all the wealth of knowledge that somebody, to if they were to work with you, how much they can learn from you. I even learned something from you today as well.
I'm glad.
And
I'm
so, if
glad
somebody
to hear
were
that.
interested in looking you up, where can they find you?
Oh, definitely. So I am big on Instagram. So I encourage you, if you're listening in, to follow along, whether you want to work with me or not. I believe that I add a lot of value like this out into the world. So you can follow me. My Instagram handle is Coach Robyn. That's ROBYN _. So Coach Robyn _. And yeah, we can connect there. And I do have some offerings and some space for clients to work with me in my signature program, working through all of these things that I kind of brought up and talked about today. So it would be just an honor to connect with anyone out there who this resonates with or feels like, oh, I'm ready to kind of invest in myself in the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely feel that Robyn, if you were to work with Robyn, you'll be in good hands. All the stuff that she even shared with us within a small time frame of just 40 minutes, there's been so many golden nuggets in there already. Imagine the time that if you were to work with her, how much more advanced that you can get. And it's all about getting that mentorship, right? And getting that coach for somebody who has walked that path already ahead of you. They can guide you so much further along and so much faster along instead of you to discover it by yourself. So
yep, I'm all about like, let's
Thank you
collapse
so much.
time, learn to ask for help. We all need one another. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I loved being here today.
Thank you so much, Robyn. And for everybody, we'll see you at the next episode. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.